All right, how's everybody doing? This is our April 17th meeting. This meeting is being recorded, so if anybody does not want to be on the footage, please turn your camera off. So I hope everybody's been enjoying the nicer weather. It's definitely been a nice break instead of the cold and the ice. Buses are starting properly. So our last meeting was held on March 13th. Cody Shamrock with Leonard's Bus Sales presented on command connection and the changes that have been made. And a few of the points from that is that they have the ECC Go app, which you can put right on your phone. You can monitor your buses. You can get health reports, service soon, or service immediately. You'll get the notifications for those. Reports can be downloaded and emailed if you need to email them to the vendors. And one of the other changes that they made is that we can add vehicles. So if you have a vehicle from another manufacturer, they can add that to your fleet, and you can monitor that as well. You still need NED to clear codes, and but the Hero you won't need, because Hero is for uploading your health reports, which On Command is going to do. That meeting was not recorded because it was using other people's VIN numbers and stuff, so we did not record that one. Today's presenter will be Bob Meyer with Cummins. He'll be presenting on the Heliox chargers, and not just those chargers, but all bus chargers and the software that's required to monitor your bus. So go ahead, Bob.
Good morning. My name is Bob Meyer. I'm with Cummins. I manage the integrated gas microgrids and what we call the EV charging aftermarket for North America. Just to give a little background about myself, I started with Cummins back in 2006. I've been with the company 18 years now. Started off in the parts department. I ran the Syracuse, New York Cummins branch. Took care of service, did training for service leadership. Then I took over plant equipment maintenance, and then I got involved in what we call the lean burn natural gas power gen products. I've been doing that since 2017. And then with the addition of, we'll call it new power, EV chargers, electrolyzers, and all the rest of that products right there, that's been handed over to me to handle the aftermarket portion of it. So as we start getting into the EV charging, I've been tasked with, commissioning of the products, training, and also the servicing of the EV chargers out in the field that Cummins sells, and we are familiar with other products out there. And I had met Dan and the group out there. They had two Heliox 50 mobile 50 units that they purchased. And we did some commissioning and some initial diagnosis here. And then he had asked me to present at this point. So we'll go through some chargers. I have an agenda set up. We'll move to the next screen here, and then we'll go through it. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just getting used to the Google stuff. So our agenda for this meeting is just go over the mobile EV charger, the 51, which most of you will probably see here in the near future, and you do see it right here on the screen. And then we'll go over some of the chargers you're going to see in the future as you start adding more EV buses and stuff like that to your fleet, because the mobile 50s are great. However, once you start getting up into your whole fleet, converting over a majority of your fleet, you really want to have the pedestals and stuff like that set up. Then we'll go through the the RMS, which is remote monitoring system, or digital or analytics and stuff like that, which this was brought up when we had met Dan and the group at the Shenandoah schools, is how do we determine what our cost per mile is and compare it to like a diesel or a gas or a natural gas bus or a vehicle that's out there. Because right now, as we know, you're going to see an electric charge. It's just going to go out there, and you really don't know what your overall cost or your total cost of ownership is. So with the remote data and stuff like that, you can do different type of chargings. You can control, which we'll talk on. I mean, it's just your dynamic charging and stuff like that. So we'll move on from here. So the first unit that we're going to see is the Mobile 50. It's probably the most common you're going to see in the field right now. So what it does is it's a 480 volt. It's got up to 65 amps. So it's got on the front of it, it's got a dial so you can go 15 amp, 25 amp, or the maximum, which is the 65 amp. So it all depends on how your infrastructure is set up. This will charge one bus. It has, it has a start on it and stuff like that. So these are the most common ones because what happens in your facility is, you'll have your power port come down, it'll sit in a certain area, and then this can plug into here into that, and then you can bring over to your vehicle and charge it from there. And like I stated, as you get into full fleet servicing and charging and stuff like that, you'd want to go to a little different application on that right there. Any questions so far?
Nope.
And as we move on to, if you have any questions, just ask the questions. We won't do a Q&A per se unless you want to do that. But if you have a question as we're moving on from here, just ask. I can answer as we move along. With the Mobile 50, this is a basic charger right here. As you can see in the front of it, you've got your handle, you've got your antenna, which is up top, number 2, your emergency stop button, charging indicator light, which is basically what you're going to be paying attention to mostly with these types of chargers here. And we'll go through that whole operation there, but can you still see it or no?
I can see your Mobile 50 charger.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, because I thought I lost that screen. Okay, good. So it has a CCS1 plug on it, which is your common plug for any type of EV charger. The only one that's a little bit different would be your Tesla charger, which is an adapter to go on to charge Teslas and stuff like that. You have your front door. So if you open the front door up in it, you'll look inside. It's got your breakers. It's got your controls. It's got all your protective relays and everything else that's inside of it. And in the very front there, number 7, if you can still see this, your number 7 is your Ethernet service socket. So as we start getting into these, you can actually plug into the front of it and pull up some data that you're seeing. What we have also is we actually go back to the vendor. They can log in remotely, tell us any faults and stuff like that. And then there's the air intake grill on the front. And then the ventilation exhaust is number 10 on the side. And then your AC input, which actually just plugs into your wall outlet or whatever that may be. It is a 3-phase with a ground. It is 480 volt, and it has 80 amp AC, DC outlet on that. Basic installation, you set the charger in a suitable location, 3-phase 480 wall socket. So you just plug it in, turn on from there, apply the brakes on the charger, plug into the AC cable, and then wait for it to finish booting up. How will you know when it boots up? Is usually that charger status light that's on the top there that I said, the indicator light. What it'll do is that will start flashing green. And then when it turns initial green, that means it's ready to charge and stuff like that. Next slide here is your normal operation. And like I said, your charger status light is really the one that's going to tell you everything like that, because the charger has to communicate with the vehicle and then back and forth, and it sets the handshake and goes from there. So basically connect a pin connector to the matching sleeve socket on the vehicle. The charge will initiate when the power green is flashing. So you know when it's starting to flash green. When the charger is ready, it'll be a solid green, goes from there. And then, I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. You plug it into the wall. That's when it goes flashing green, which I already explained. Then it goes a solid green, ready to charge. Plug the charger into the bus, the CC1 adapter or CCS adapter, into the vehicle, and the vehicle will charge state. It will start beginning. So basically, what it does is, as soon as you plug it into the vehicle, the EV charger will start flashing blue. When it's flashing blue, what it's asking the vehicle to do is, are you ready to charge? And the vehicle will basically communicate back to the charger. And then as soon as it has that handshake, it says, yes, I'm ready to charge. That light will turn blue, and then it will start the charging aspect from there. And then once it's done, it'll go back to green. You're done. You press the button on the top. So that indicator light that's on the very top of this charger is actually a stop button also. So you put your finger on top of that. That'll let you disconnect the CCS adapter from the bus, and then you can put it back into there. Now, if you get a red light during any charging session or any point, that means there's a fault with either the bus or the charger. So if your charging has been good so far and everything's been going good with your charger, and you plug into a bus or vehicle and it starts to charge and then it goes to red, first thing to do is check the vehicle to see if there's any comms issue that may have come up with the charger to bus or bus to charger communication, or if there's any type of fault with the vehicle itself. If there's no fault with the vehicle itself, then we can go in and we can look at remote in, look at what the charger's doing. Is it something within the charger itself? And then we can determine what our next course of action would be at that point. If we go ahead.
So you said that the light turns blue when it's charging?
Yes.
Okay, and then it goes back to solid green afterward when it's done?
When it's done charging up.
Okay.
Now, there was a question that was asked at Shenandoah school districts is, I bring the vehicle in on a Friday. I plug it in. It charges. The temperature drops over the weekend. Will that charger keep those batteries charged over the weekend if it was already at a full charge at one point? The answer on that right now is no, because the vehicle dictates the state of charge. So there would have to be a key cycle on the vehicle to turn it on, turn it off, and then it'll call for another charge cycle at that point. So those are some of the things that we want to get into the back office management, which we'll touch on in a little bit too. However, after the discussion with the we'll say the bus manufacturer, or even the powertrain, which is, could be a Cummins powertrain or somebody else's powertrain, the EV powertrain, that should not delete any power over the weekend. Because the thought process was, well, if it's over the weekend and it gets cold, that the heaters may kick on that vehicle to keep the charging cycle going. The heaters will not kick on. So basically, once it's charged and it's at a full charge state, nothing should be deleting those batteries down if the bus is keyed off and the charging is done at that point. So I hope I clarified that, because before, our thought process was, if for any reason the charging actually started to deplete, that the charger would automatically turn back on and charge the vehicle. And that's not the case, because it has to go through a key cycle on that with the vehicle. So with some of the fault codes that we have right here, hopefully you can still see the presentation. We should be on slide number 7, hard reset if required.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if there's a case where there's a fault in the charger, and we're not seeing anything that's creating any issues with the charger, and there's no issues with the vehicle itself, we may ask for basically a hard reset. So basically, to make sure the CCS plug is disconnected. If not disconnected from the bus, make sure no one else is around the charger, or no one can access the charging position of the bus neither. So you remove the plug from the wall, wait 1 minute, plug the charger back into the wall socket, and wait for the LED to become continuously green. So that should take your hard reset, and what it does is it resets any type of PLCs or anything like that that you've got in the bus, or in the charger itself. Now, to disconnect your CCS cable from the bus, if you're at a fault condition on the vehicle, there's actually right next to where the CCS plugs into the vehicle, there's a button there. You press that button, the vehicle will allow that to release at that point, as long as it's in a fault condition. If it's in the middle of a charge cycle, you either got to press the top of the Mobile 50 or any type of charger to that lighting button that's on the top to release it. So basically, it stops the charge cycle, or go into the vehicle and press that button to stop the charge cycle before you disconnect. The next slide right here is we get into the vehicle or the charger protections and components here. So just to keep in mind, if you do have the charger and you have to work on it for some reason there, which is, there's pretty simple components within the charger, is unplug it from the wall. As soon as it's unplugged from the wall and there's no power to the charger, there's no stored power inside the charger, which is different than anything else. And keep that in mind, because when you look at your powertrain on the vehicle itself, is you disconnect any type of power, you will have some stored power within the capacitors and stuff like that. So you got to discharge your capacitors before you can move forward any. But with the charger, there's no stored power in there. So at any point, as soon as the power is disconnected from that charger, it is ready to be serviced at that point. But you do have residual current detection. So it basically protects against any earth fault or anything like that. It has a fuse conductor and stuff like that. So most of the chargers, if we look at the Mobile 50s, and this is something we ran into at the Shenandoah schools when they had their Mobile 50s, is they actually had fuse blocks, which was good. What we were seeing is the manufacturer decided to use breakers. And what happens with the breakers are great design and everything, but when you plug the vehicle in the initial startup of the charger, there wasn't enough time delay and it was tripping the breaker. So they went back to a fuse. So that offers a good enough time delay where you're not tripping anything. So it has the inrush current protection. So it limits the current at startup. Over voltage protection, which it should have. So it protects any type of vehicle or anything like that it's hooked up to. So it has the Terra, the isolation Terra. So it's earth to earth, total system earth. And then it has the earth isolated and not connected to earth. So it does protect you there. Short circuit check. So it checks for any type of shorts in the system or the cables before it allows it to move forward. Insulation monitoring device. So it does look at the insulation that's around everything. And basically, if you had any insulation that was chip or leaking any current, it would shut it off, stuff like that. And then reverse polarity protection, stuff like that. So it's only going to go one direction. So it does have a lot of interfaces in here. So it really does protect the user for any type of nicks or anything like that within the cabling or anything like that. Because as you look at this, the cables coming from where it's plugged into the wall to where it's going to the vehicle, those are pretty thick cables right there. And just keep in mind, the Mobile 50, I believe, comes with a 3-meter charging. So it goes from the wall or from the charger to the vehicle. You got a short cord there, but you can go up to, I think it's 7 meters, so 21 feet, almost 21 feet of charging cord there too.
Now, would we have to purchase a longer cord if we wanted one?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Any idea on the cost on those?
So if you go up to, I believe if it's a 21 foot, I think it's like $1,500.
Okay.
Yep. So that's, it's something that we should keep in mind. And this is something that as we move forward and you start ordering them, if you're looking at a certain location that you want to keep the charger at and just move it up and down your aisleways, but then you've got to go right to left. Something to keep in mind before you order it is if you do need a longer cord, order it with the longer cord at that point. This is something we're just learning as, we need to ask those type of questions out there. So basic maintenance on these things, and the mobile 50s are it's like what you're going to see as far as any type of battery charger that's out there. There's really not much maintenance to these units at all. Basically what you want to do is do your normal checks, check for normal sounds coming in or out of it, check your cabling, check for odors or aroma that may be coming through there, and always try to keep it clean, dust free, and stuff like that. Your half year, every 6 months, check your ventilation dust filters, because remember, these do have a fan in there. So as they operate, it's going to pull air through it to keep the unit cool and stuff like that. So depending on type of environment that you're in, if it's a dusty environment, your filter is going to get clogged more often. In certain areas that we live in, if we get into May, June timeframe, the cottonwood that blows around in some of these areas, that will get sucked in there also. And those are some of the maintenance things. Your terminals, you can check your torques. They really shouldn't go through, and they shouldn't come loose or anything like that. A simple thing you could do too during a charging. So if you open it up, and this is something that's, be very careful if you do any of this stuff, but take your heat gun and just check your your connections and make sure you're not getting a hot spots where the wires connect into there. That's really an easy way to check to see if you've got something out of torque or anything like that, because what you'll start to do is you'll start get a little more heat if the torque loosens up or something like that. So you're getting power jumping and starting to heat up or anything like that. Weekly checks as far as the cable and also the CCS plug-in cable. So, like I stated, there's not much maintenance to it. I would say once a year, just go through, unplug it, check your torques and stuff like that. A couple times a year, or depending on type of environment that you have, is just check them air filters that you have and just make sure the air filters are clean. And really that's about the extent of it. Your biggest safety feature and your biggest thing is your charging cords and the cord that goes to the wall, and make sure those are in safe working order also. I do have the data tag for the Heliox 50. This is a critical piece right here, because at any time, if you have any type of faults or you're seeing anything with the charger, your serial number that's on there allows us or Heliox to remote into that charger to see exactly what's happening with the charging cycles or what's happening with the charger itself, and we can come up with a repair plan or whatever else it may be. So keep your data tag. If probably the best thing to do is take a picture of the data tag, store it in a file someplace also, because as you know, we are in an environment where we're working on vehicles, and there's grease on our hands, we're moving the mobile 50 around or anything like that. We could be getting those things, those data tags dirty or anything like that, and it could be tough to read some of it. So just to keep in mind for there. So now we're going to get into some of the other EV chargers that you see out there, you may see in the field. You've got your level 2 chargers, which is the first column with the red and the white with the pedestals. They can be either wall mounted or pedestal mounted. What is a level 2 charger? Basically, it's a 240 charger. And then you get into level 3s, which are your 480 chargers and stuff like that. Most of your level 2s you'll see for your automobiles and such. Can you use them for this type of charging? Yes, but it's not going to, they're not really a fast charger. So it's going to take a little bit more time to charge your vehicles up on that point there. So we do have the 50 kW mobile chargers out there, which are a level 3 charger. What you're going to see too is eventually you may see a mobile 60. They used to have a mobile 25. What they found is the mobile 50 is the most common one out there. And then as you start growing your fleet and stuff like that, you would get into probably like something like a Flex 180. So your level 3 Flex 180, what you see is that box right there. That's the brains of we'll say the Flex system itself. So that's your main control cabinet. And within the main control cabinet, you can have up to 3 of the DC outlet columns or 3 of the depot pantographs. What's the difference between the column? Basically, a column you can put up to 3 of them within. I think it's up to 300 feet away from the charging base, but that's all going to depend on the type of. You can move them as far as you want, but again, the farther you move them away from the base, the more you're going to have for install costs. So a lot of times what you'll see the base over here, and those are all NEMA 3R, so they're weather enclosed. And then what you'll do is you'll have your columns set up where your vehicles can come up, pull up, and you can park right in front of the charging base or the car charging column. What does a pantograph do? The pantograph is the charging happens on the roof of the vehicle. So with a pantograph, you'll see this more in the transit world, where New York City Transit, CNY Central, something you'll see in Albany, where the transit bus pulls in, the radio frequency, so it'll pull in, it'll probably have a canopy over the bus or inside the building. It'll pull in a radio frequency, will allow that pantograph to come over the top of the bus, line up, and charge it from the top. Then when the charging sequence is done, that automatically lifts off the vehicle and the vehicle can go out from there. These are 180 kW chargers, the Flex 180s. You can get up to 360 Flexes also, but again, there's still only a 3-to-1 ratio on that. And so here's the charging system itself. They're Buy America compliant. They're reliable design. They're a 3-to-1 ratio, and it does offer you some different flexibility. So what ends up with this right here is it's a 180 kW. Each charging column can do up to 60 kW itself. And then what it does is, if you've got 3 vehicles pulled up, it takes the vehicles and balances out the charging on it from there. So here's your charging column from here, and you can do single or double single. It's only a single charging point at this point. Eventually they'll look at dual chargers off either side, but it's usually just one off one side. So when we start talking about flex charging system, this is where you got your one charging unit with the one charging column. So you can do one bus here, or you can do up to 3 buses. You can do 2 buses. So if you've got the 3 columns, you don't have to have all 3 columns working at the same time. You can just have one column working, and it goes from there. Any questions so far?
If you have the three buses charging like that, does it slow down the charge for each one of them versus just having one?
No.
Okay.
No. So basically what is, you've got your static and parallel charging. You've got your static sequential charging, which deliver the charge through the charge columns and right into there. And then you've got your dynamic charging. So basically what it does is it takes the bus that requires the charge that's depleted as much, it allows that to go, you can set it up so you can have that go first, or it can finish one charging cycle on one bus and then move on to the next. So, and usually the bus is going to dictate the requirement. So it could ask for however many amps of charging, and depending on what the charger, if you only got one hooked up, granted, you can probably speed up the charge a little bit more because you're not depleting any of that.
So even on our chargers, if we have a bus plugged in,
Yep.
and it's been on there for a couple of hours, and another bus comes off its run, and that bus plugs in, it's going to slow down the charge for the first bus that was plugged in, because the new bus that was plugged in, that was just on a run, has a much more depleted battery. Is that correct?
No, it'll continue the rate. So if we're on this 3-to-1 ratio, it'd continue the same charging rate of that one right there. The new bus will charge, it will request a certain amount, but would it only give it what it can afford to give it. So it won't deplete, it won't take away from the first bus that's there. It's only going to allow it to have what the capacity of that column can give.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions so far? And this is probably what you'll see in the future. So, and the reason I state that is the Mobile 50s are great, but they're more for when you've got vehicles in the shop, and you want to get them to a full state before you send them out, or you've been working on them, and then all of a sudden the charging state's gone, and you need to charge them back up. If you were looking at full fleet charging and you've got these Mobile 50s all over the place, that's probably not where you want to be at that point. You can get more dynamic information and moving forward with any type of these chargers that you've got here, the 3-to-1 ratio and such too. Now what we'll do is we'll get into some of the RMS, or the charger management system. And as I stated, this is evergreen right here too. So remote monitoring is the RMS system, so we have OpConnect and we've got Mobility House. And what this does is it looks at the chargers, what input or how much power each charger is putting out, and what your electricity costs are and stuff like that. So what is charger management system, CMS, or remote monitoring like that right there? It gives you your charger availability status. It can give you a location on a map, depending on how we set it up. Status of charge monitoring. So if you're looking at certain vehicles, you can look at, okay, I need to have bus 254. It needs to be on this run. What's its status of charge? So if I've got it plugged in and it's only at 20%, and I know that's got to go out this afternoon, and we may not get to a full charge by then we may have to dispatch another vehicle at that point. You can do remote control charging activity, so you can start and stop charging from there also. This is something that's really critical, especially when we start talking about over the weekends or something like that. So really it shouldn't drop. Your charging status should not drop on the vehicle just by sitting there with the key off and stuff like that. But if for some reason you're seeing something like that, you can start and stop charging. Or what ends up happening is you're looking at this vehicle sitting out in the yard, and here it is, it's 100 degrees out, and your energy bills at that point are going to be high, because right now, the peak demand and power costs are pretty substantial. So you may stop that charging session and then have it start up at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night, where utility costs are a lot less.
Hey, Bob.
Yep.
We have a question.
Sorry. Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, Bob. Now, who's watching this charge management? Is this our dispatcher supposed to be watching this, or do you hire a telematics specialist to watch this, or is it someone in the shop should be watching this? Or
okay, there's a couple different ways we can do this. You can have somebody in the shop doing it. So somebody, within your organization could be monitoring the charging status. You can also set up within the parameters of the CMS system is when you want these vehicles to charge up. So that's when we get into some of the dynamic charging, and we can go through some of that here also. The other thing is Mobility House or OpConnect has somebody monitoring some of this stuff, or they have it set up where they'll look at it and say, okay, this is the parameters that we want to set up for you because this is what we've seen in your area. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, John, this is Al Karam. Hey, this is what I recommend, and this is for the future. Right now we're talking handful of buses, handful of chargers. But if you look at your fleet, at Bethlehem, let's say 100 buses, and if you opt to go, for example, with a charger that has 2 ports on it, you're going to have 50 chargers out there, right? Not including what you may have in the shop. So what I envision is having a new type of employee on staff that's going to monitor this stuff, that's going to understand connectivity, is going to understand what these chargers' capabilities are, and troubleshoot them, understand high power, and school transportation. That person does not yet exist, and I would not put all this on the dispatchers, nor will I put it all on the maintenance side of the house. Especially when you're looking 100% fleet electrification.
Right. That's why I called it a telematics specialist, someone that would be watching this and watching your tablets and all the other stuff. So it'd definitely be another position I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing to do is as we start putting these dynamic chargers in, or these, depot chargers or whatever we do, and this is something that and that's why I'm still working with Dan and his group there in the Shenandoah schools is, okay, what do we want for a charger management system, and what are we looking to get out of it? Because they've asked for this, and I'm like, okay, I'm slow going at it because I want to make sure that we can do not only look at what the utility costs are and have it charge at certain times at night, but also looking at the vehicle side of it and do fleet management from there also. So we know exactly which bus is costing us more money, which route is whatever. So there's things that we all know in the diesel world that, bus 254, and I keep saying bus 254, I feel sorry for that bus, but bus 254 may be one that's costing us more money. And it could be, how we're using it, what runs we're having it go on for hills and all the rest of that stuff, whatever it may be. And those are things that we want to look at. And those are the analytics that I want to provide to, Dan and his group before I say, okay, here's a software system, go put it on it. And it really does us no good at this point. So I want to make sure that we can do not only the energy side of it, but also the fleet management side of it too for you. So that's coming down. I will have it. I'm working on all the final details on that right now. So, because that's critical, and this is something that as we set as this management system up, we can set it in the background to say, okay, these chargers, and on Thursdays, we want them to start charging at 8:00 at night, because we know in a couple hours they'll be fully charged. But between 8 and 10, we know we've got our best price for electricity at that point, and then that changes. It's going to be ever changing, and that's why charger management systems in the future is going to be critical, because as we know right now is Monday through Friday between 8 and 5, all of our electricity is being, those are the peak times out there, because businesses are operating, they've got their air conditioners running, they've got their heaters running, and all the rest of this stuff. We start tailing off after 5:00 at night. When you get into late night, that's when nobody's using very much electricity because they're all in bed, they turn the lights off and all the rest of that stuff. Well, that's going to change, because as we start adding EVs across North America and the world, your peak may change, that you may see that overnight from 10 to 3:00 at night, everybody's charging their vehicles, that turns into a peak time. So we want to make this evergreen so we can keep constantly changing that. So hope that answers some questions there. And then we start talking about this is optimizing charging. So battery life, again, price control and time management. This is a subscription-based service. So this would be, it wouldn't tie into your BMS system at your facility. It can. It's a cloud-based system. You can have it set up that way right there through the Wi-Fi and all the rest of it. Usually what we do is we have this set up so we're using cellular data and stuff like that. So it's going to a cloud, it's sending information to a cloud, and then at any point you can log in and look at it, whether you're at home, whether you're driving down the road, you have it attached to your, granted, you shouldn't be driving and looking at stuff, but pull over to the side of the road. If somebody calls you can look at the system and go from there. It allows you for customer support, operations management, smart energy management, which we will touch on in a few other slides, and driver self-service tools. So it helps the driver with some of the stuff too. And then EV fleet management, which I think is the most critical because everybody wants to know, what does this electric vehicle cost? And what's my fuel cost? Because electricity is a fuel on this in comparison to what my diesel, my gas, or my natural gas units were. So,
Hey, Bob, do you
Yep.
have any idea yet about the cost of this subscription that we would have to purchase?
I don't have that yet. I will have that. They're supposed to get me all that information by mid next week.
And I'm sure that it will change depending on how many buses we have.
It may not change.
Okay.
So what's going to end up happening with when you start thinking about your RMS system or your charge management system is how many vehicles in a certain footage can we hook to this one device? So if we can daisy chain them across and it's less than 330 feet, then it's one subscription, one portal, and we go off from there. If you've got different site locations, which something to think about in the future is you may want to have different site locations that have chargers at them. And then you may want to put a system there. And the only reason I state that is depending on your footprint. So if I look out here, I'm in the North Syracuse School District out here, and we've got schools all over the place. One thing I may, if I'm looking at fleet management and stuff like that, I may take and put a couple of these charging systems right over at the Cicero North Syracuse High School. And the reason I would do that is because we've got all of our sporting events that go there. So we're going to have school districts from all over coming here. And if they bring their electric buses, they're going to need to have them plugged in also. So, we're going to have to share resources and stuff like that. But also, that's where we're dispatching from at that point too. So when it comes back, they don't have to go back to the bus garage, which is 20 miles away or whatever it may be. They can just pull right into the school and charge there. Or if you've got a school that's out a little bit further, and instead of chasing the hills all the way back, set a couple chargers over at that elementary school, and then the bus driver can go into there and do their charging there. So just something to think about in the future. So not all of them have to come back to the main base location to get recharged or anything like that. So different way of thinking than we had with the diesel or the gas products out there. So, because again, if you're out on the road and something happens and you need fuel for a diesel bus or anything like that, you can pull any place and buy fuel. Not that you really want to, but you could. When you get into electricity and stuff like that right there, most of what you're going to find is you can pull into a Love's Travel Center or something like that, and they're going to have the charger, but they may not be the fast charger. They may not be the level 2 chargers, or they have a level 3 charger. So those are some of the things to think about. So what we can do here is this is some of the stuff we can see, the charger status. So here it is, we've got 8 chargers and we've got 3 of them that are available to do some charging. You've got some of the units that are offline. Well, why are they offline? That's something we would want to look at is, are they not communicating, or do we have them locked out for some reason, or why are they not online? Or they may be, they may be offline because they're charging and stuff like that too. Then what we can do is our CO saved, which we can change this to anything. Right now, they're just looking at, emissions. What did we save by running this EV vehicle versus the diesel and stuff like that? So there's different environmental impact charging. There's some other reports that we can run on this. So at any point we can see what charger. So if you got somebody coming back and with a bus, you can say, okay, just pull into slip number 2 and plug it in. That charger's available. So then they're not chasing around to see which one's available and what's not. Another thing we can do is the charger session screen. We can see what the chargers are doing during their session and what type of electricity they're pulling out of there, and we can see what our environmental impact is. This one right here is energy consumption screen. So we know we've got 3 EV chargers working, and here's our EV consumption at that point and during the day and everything like that. And then we can do different reports on that. Now, this is just energy consumption. It's overall based off of that charger. So if charger number 2 is being used all the time, you're going to see that the energy for charger number 2 is up. What does that really do for you? It just tells you that, you're charging a lot of charger number 2. So you may want to start spreading that around, because keep in mind, these things are pieces of equipment. They may require some overhauls, or they may require, the cords may be broken a little bit easier because you're using that one all the time. Spread it out, spread the wealth or something like that. These units are good up to, I think it's 10 years, 15,000 charge cycles and stuff like that. But before they need a major overhaul on them. But again, if you could spread that out, it's good to go. Question?
Hey, yeah, I got a question. Like, when I charge a different bus into that charger, does it recognize that it's a different bus? And does it give me the information on that bus?
At this point, it does not. And that's where I'm getting into the next few slides. When we get into fleet management, I need this system to tell me that, if we're using charger number 2 all the time, I need to know if it's bus number 200, bus number 211, or bus 212, and how much electricity each one of them buses were using. That's what I'm getting the information from these other 2, OpConnect and Mobility House. That's the information you guys need. And that's the critical piece of the pie when we start talking about fleet management.
And another question I got is, you're saying like charge other people's vehicles. Now, if I pump fuel for other people outside of the school district, I got to have all my pumps inspected by weights and measures. Is there some kind of inspection we got to do on these
No.
electric chargers?
Nope.
So, okay.
Yeah, Bureau of Weights and Measures is because, are you charging them for the fuel?
No, that's why I don't have to get that inspection done. So otherwise, I would have to get it done. Like right now, I can just inspect it myself with one of them 5-gallon cans, or I have a question, I have Northeast Petroleum or whoever they are now, Dalrymple, come and check it for me. But if I'm selling it, I know that is gonna make a auditor's head explode.
Well,
there's no way of charging somebody, and I really don't want to get into charging people, letting them.
No, and I get that, but if you put chargers at, for instance, if you want to put a charger at, like I said, I was going to put it over at Cicerone or Syracuse High School, because they've got a place. And truthfully, that's what ends up happening when when you're sharing utilities between school districts. You'll win on some, you'll lose on another. That's one thing. But if you did have to charge customers, this charger management system has software built in where you could actually charge customers to use your chargers. But yeah, so there's things on that too. So so what happens is and this is something that we've looked at for different organizations out there, is they look at us, okay, a retail establishment wants to put 3 chargers in. And the reason they want to put 3 chargers in is that customer comes with their EV vehicle, they can pull in, plug it in, charge it while they're shopping. They come back out, it's done, and they've spent an hour in there, they got a full charge on it, and it'll actually charge that customer a certain dollar value for using that electricity. Just like you see when you go, if you go down the Pennsylvania Turnpike and you stop at some of those places there, they've got the Tesla chargers. And even on the New York State Thruway, they've got whatever chargers they've got. They actually charge the customers for using those chargers. And this software management system has that opportunity also.
Okay, Al Karam has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, not necessarily a question, but just an observation for my colleagues here to keep in mind. That there is a push by administration to add not only charging stations for visiting teams, if you will, and they are talking about using a credit card type, to pay, but they're also talking about adding charging stations around the schools, the campus, for staff to use and parents who may be visiting. So you need to think about that from a power consumption. We're all fixated on power consumption required for school buses only. When you're talking with your administrators, make sure that they take the entire picture in, especially if if they're thinking about installing chargers for use by visiting teams or staff or parents. I think it's crazy. We don't have Sunoco on the campus here providing gasoline. I don't know why we would want to do it for electric vehicles, but that will require more power for your facilities and campuses, school grounds, what have you, which impacts a lot of other things.
Correct. So what you're going to see is more than likely those type of chargers that they're going to see in the parking lots for the staff and the parents or the kids that are driving the vehicle or students or whatever it may be. Those are going to be your level 2 chargers. But again, they're still going to consume electricity. I think what the school district is looking at with that type of application is, let's monetize this somehow. Let's see if we can have a revenue stream coming in, because if the students come here and they're driving, a Tesla or something type of EV vehicle, they can plug it in. We can monetize it from here because we're going to collect some cash from them, because they're going to be able to charge it, go into school, spend their 6-7 hours in school, and then it'll be fully charged and off they go. If there's a sporting event or a concert at the school and you do get some parents, grandparents, or whatever traveling from a distance coming in and they've got their electric vehicle, they can plug it in and then they can monetize that also. So it could be a revenue stream for the school district. And if you've got them at certain events when the other schools do come in and they have to charge their buses, and they could charge the other school district for it on a credit card or whatever it may be. So there's an opportunity there. But you're right. You really got to look at what your electrical one line is. And this is something the districts really, the administration needs to look at is, what's our first priority? Our first priority should be, I'm looking at this right now, and I have school buses, and I'm going to have grants and stuff like that to change my fleet over from diesel to diesel or gas to electric. That's my first priority at this point, because that's a mandate. They're going to get some grant money and all the rest of the stuff. So if they've got that, then that should be their first priority. If I'm looking at my one line electrical diagram and what my energy that I can have in here, this is what I got to look at first. Then I can look at whatever I can do on the other side of it, because, you know, what they think they may be getting from the money that they may generate may not be enough to offset the cost to an upgrade to an electrical system. So. And then this is right here is reports that you're going to pull and download and stuff like that. So this is where we want to get into reporting mechanism for fleet operation, energy needs, and understanding what our fleets are costing us. And this is the piece of the puzzle that, you know, I really believe is critical for your group to have out there. So you know what your total cost of ownership is for each vehicle. And then now we can make educated decisions down the road. Is, you know, if it's this bus that's costing me more money, for some reason, we know why it's costing us money and everything else. So, any other questions?
No, I mean, I think we're going to end up with an awful lot of chargers as things move on. If you know, when that's for the students now, you're talking about outside of the different schools.
Yeah, I mean, you would you could add a ton of chargers out there, you know, and then I think your focus should be on, you know, what do I got to have for a fleet? How many vehicles am I going to change out next year? Is it 10 vehicles? Is it 20 vehicles? How many chargers do I need? And like you stated, I think you said you've got a couple hundred school buses. So think about how many chargers you got to have for a couple hundred school buses. So,
yeah.
What is the cost for the charge management system?
I don't have that dollar value here as of yet. I should have that by mid next week.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I should have that mid next week. And you know, I think the school districts or the administration is probably looking at right now what grants are out there for the EV buses and what grants are out there for the EV charging, because I think New York State has an incentive program out there, so you'll probably see a lot more upgrades here shortly.
All right, and you did say it is a cloud-based subscription.
Yep.
And so we could use tablets, cell phones, whatever we need to log into that
Correct.
program.
Correct.
Okay, because that's one of the questions that I had. All right, does anybody else have any other questions for Bob? Okay, not seeing any. We will move on.
So just a couple other things. As you start getting chargers and stuff like that, I will I'll send my email address and phone number out and stuff like that. Is I travel all of North America, but I will, you know, if you need me at your facility to help with the chargers or walk through and open them up and show you some different things and how they operate and stuff like that, just reach out. I can come out. I've got a staff that can come out and help with this also.
Okay, and I think as we move forward here, we will probably have you back to speak again on the changes, because you know it's going to change rapidly.
Yep.
And the software, and we're going to need the pricing and all that. So
yeah, like I was talking earlier, I mean, I would like to next time when I'd like to know when I'm going to be at an AES or our PIC lab, and then maybe do another session like this, but walk through and show you each one of the pieces of equipment in a video aspect of how it works, open them up, show you the insides. We can go in and show you some of the because hopefully by the end of next week, I'll have all the information for the management system, and then we can walk through all of that also. So now it's more of a visual. This is what the charger is. This is the inside. This is the outside. This is how they operate. These are what the lights do. and then go right from the 50 to the Flex 180 to the CMS system. So,
Okay, yeah, that definitely sounds like something we're going to do here in the upcoming year. We are looking for more presentation ideas from everyone for the upcoming year. Our next meeting will be held on May 15th. Craig Stavicle with Valio. He works for Valio Corp. Be presenting on air conditioning. We're getting into that time of the season when we're all going through our AC units, making sure that they all work. DOT is checking them. So that'll be our next meeting. June 12th will be our DOT roundtable. So any questions that we have pertaining DOT, we need those. If you can email those to me, that would be great. And we'll make sure that they're all answered. And July 11th is going to be our summer seminar in Syracuse. So we've got a few things in the works here, and the seminar is coming together nicely. And that being said, does anybody have anything else to add to today's meeting? All right, not seeing anything. Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate your presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting.
thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.